Tomorrow is the almighty inflation day. Woo! The only day of the year that we celebrate wishing that things were better than they were. And we have to discuss sort of what this looks like because there's a lot going down, and I'm going to be live streaming tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern because inflation data does come out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And inflation data is going to dictate what I think is the next upcoming move. Now, yesterday, I made a video titled, "We Touched the Holy Grail Trend Line for AMC." And tomorrow is going to be a very deciding day on whether or not we get a continuation of the PAMP or a discontinuation and a push downwards. I think that inflation data is 1,000,000% going to dictate the way that that sort of looks, the way that it moves. And I want to discuss that today and sort of what my hypothesis is moving forward so that we can sort of know what to expect coming into tomorrow. So with that being said, let's not waste any time. Tomorrow is inflation day. Tomorrow we have inflation expected to come out. It is going to be on August the 10th. And inflation is expected to come out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, which is the same as 7:30 a.m. Central, an hour before market open. The Wall Street expectation for current estimates is about 8.7% the last I had checked. And the way that inflation sort of works is very simple. The market prices in what their expectation was, the same as they do with earnings. Does the market expect to miss? Does the market expect to beat? Whatever they expect is what they're going to price in for that overall stock. So for example, if the market expects for a stock to miss on earnings, they will typically sell the price down. And then if it beats, well, then price goes back up. In the same way that if Wall Street is expecting an 8.7% estimate on inflation, they're going to price that in. If you beat that expectation or you meet that expectation, I typically expect a pop. And if it's above that, you typically expect more of a sell-off. So with that being said, I want to talk first about the SPY because the SPY is going to dictate what I think is the movement on AMC. I know people don't like to hear this. I talk about this quite frequently, but I don't think that the meme stock rally will take place unless the SPY has some wind in its sails. It has a little bit of momentum to follow through with what's happening, right? The SPY today broke out of a rising wedge. Typically, the expectation you'd have for a break of a rising wedge is a massive push to the downside. This isn't a surprise, right? This is actually pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. You see the fall off on volume, peaks sort of get lower and lower, especially the last couple of days. You can see this drop off in overall volume. And typically, volume picks up on the breakdowns from any sort of a break of that pattern, right? So now that we've exited this rising wedge, you'd expect volume to pick up. However, it did not, right? It hasn't quite picked up that volume yet being the key word. Now, there's a couple different options and ways that I can see this playing out. Number one, and the situation that I'm sort of hoping for and expecting, to be quite frank with you, is that CPI data comes out tomorrow and is actually a beat. It beats sort of the Wall Street expectation. You get a pump and the SPY reclaims this rising wedge. That does mean that eventually I would expect the SPY to pull back and to have that true die pattern. I mean, a lot of people are referencing the 2008 chart and how eerily similar things look now compared to 2008. And I completely agree with you, right? However, I think the point in which there's going to be that inflection and that sort of change in momentum isn't here. I think it's this level right here. $427, 427 would be the touch point that would bring you up to the macro bear trend that has existed since the 04 January touch point. You have another touch here at 29 March, which coincidentally lines up beautifully with the last peak that AMC saw. It was literally on 29 March, the day that the SPY tapped this overall macro bear trend. And I think you're going to get the same very similar situation here where the SPY comes back up and it tests this macro bear trend, which would line up with about $427. And at that point, it is going to sell off. That is all coinciding with the fact and banking on the fact that CPI data comes out bullish tomorrow. You're banking on that, right? If you want to see continuation on AMC, if you want to see continuation on GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond, Nokia, BlackBerry, Sundial, whatever you're in, it doesn't matter. You really want CPI data to come out tomorrow bullish, and I think that it's going to be a beat. This sounds crazy, it sounds weird, but there's real logic to this. When retail investors are overly bullish, that's when the script flips. That's when everything gets really, really freaking bearish. It's maximum euphoria is when you start to experience fear. In the same way that when retail is overly bearish, you typically see things happen in the opposite direction. Stocks will start to move up. Things will start to go the opposite direction. I don't think retail is bullish enough for Wall Street to flip the script yet. That sounds crazy to say, but I don't think we're there, and I think this is the narrative that makes the most sense. But the second scenario is that CPI data comes out tomorrow and it's bad, and you see a continuation of the overall sell-off on this rising wedge, right? You just get the complete full breakdown on this rising wedge on the SPY, in which case things will go down. And that is going to reflect very heavily on the way that AMC, GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond, all of these different tickers trade. Now, I've got AMC pulled up right here. What you can see here, and what I mentioned in yesterday's video, is I expect to bounce in two different spots as as a scenario, right? First one is the 382, which is $23.14. Second one was the 618, which is $20.44. Right now, we are hanging on the 0.5. Now, I stand pretty firm. I think what made the most sense to me was the 618. I way more expected a bounce of 2044 than I did 2179. However, this could be the spot. Could be. I can't tell you with certainty. What I can tell you is that my game plan, my notes, 618 made more sense to me, 2044. But nonetheless, there's a couple different scenarios here, right? There's a couple different ways that you can look at sort of how we're gearing up and the way that things could start to move. The number one scenario in which the SPY actually does follow through with this pattern that I'd mentioned before, it reclaims that rising wedge, it rides it until what I think would be about the 15th of August is where that inflection would happen, and you see that push to the downside. If that happens, we get that true follow through on the SPY, AMC is going to push. And the good news for you is that the falling resistance level, touch point, touch point, touch point, touch point, another touch point here, that's sort of been hanging over Amy's shoulders for the past 2 days, right? Has officially been broken. You saw a breakout from that coming into the close today. You saw a slight upside level of support and about a flat top level of resistance. It's sort of just hanging. It's flipping back and forth between what I think is a bullish triangle, rising support, flat top resistance, trying to determine whether it'd like to actually push up. And I think this indecision comes from a lack of volume and a lack of liquidity and a lack of decision making from the broad market waiting for CPI data to come out tomorrow. True, we would have loved to see this go up 30% today, but I was expecting, at least to some extent, a red day today, which is why I talked about the retracements that we got yesterday as sort of a scenario, right? I expected it to either come down to the 618 or to get that true bounce off the 382 and come up and retest probably about $25. Tried to do that here, right? Bounce off the 382, came up to the 236, rejected, came back down, and that's where we are right now, right? If the SPY comes out and inflation data is good tomorrow, it's the same narrative. It's the same narrative as I talked about in my previous video. It's the narrative in which you see AMC come up, test out some of these previous levels. I think come all the way back up to $25 and test out the 236. Of course, along the way, you would have to break what was previously a demand zone, now acting as a supply zone. It's this green box. We're going to change to red, right? This will act as demand. You crack through that, you're looking at the 236. I think along the way, it's going to look something like this. I can't time it out perfectly, but probably about bing, bong, bing, bong, come back up. I think fibs are really huge levels, and I'd be watching that pretty closely. The bounce off the 0.5, good sign. It's even better than the 618. Maybe you could have bought calls for cheaper, but I'm still in favor of a bounce here, right? This is all banking on inflation data being good. Now, if inflation data is bad, right, that's the other option here, then I'm going to show you what's going to happen. If inflation data tomorrow for the SPY comes out and it is poor, let me just use this handy dandy tool, a bars pattern, and that will show you what the replication of this would look like. Be about this, minus this part. I don't think this would happen. If CPI data comes out bad tomorrow, I think that AMC will come all the way back down to $16. That sounds crazy. CPI data does set the tone for the way that stocks move. And I think if it is bad, that you're going to see it come back down. Here's the thing. Who knows? Could go up, could go down. I am personally in favor of it going up. I am. I think that CPI data is going to be a beat. I think that too many people are bearish on CPI. I think it is going to be an improvement. I think a lot of people are seeing this 9.1% inflation year over year number, and that's driving a lot of fear, and I understand that. But I don't think that, I think that 8.7 is going to be a beat. I think Wall Street's going to react positively to inflation. You're going to watch this come back up and test the $427 mark, and that'll reflect on Amy. But we will know tomorrow, and I will be live for it. So if you want to stop by, if I'm wrong or if I'm right, I don't care, whatever, right? If you want to stop by, I will be live streaming tomorrow at 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. We will wait for that inflation data to come out. We will watch it happen live. We will see how the markets react live, and I will give you my live reaction on what I think makes the most sense. But this is my story. I'm sticking to it. It makes sense to me. If I'm wrong, you critique me, you call me a clown, I don't care. I'm sticking to my guns because this does make sense. This is the narrative that makes the most sense in my head. I'm going to rock with it. I'm going to roll with it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow on the live stream if you guys decide to stop by. So that's what I've got. Appreciate you as always. Much love, like taps. Peace.